Okay, in this video I want to go over beginner safe gun handling, some skills that new shooters really need to learn. And got Serena here, she's kind of new to shooting and stuff like that, so there's a few things that I would go over with a new shooter that are very important and universal at the same time, good skills to learn and always follow. So first thing I want to go over is the safety rules with her. So first things first, never point your weapon at anything you do not intend to shoot. And I'm not going to use destroy or, kill or whatever, because just because you get shot or something gets shot, it doesn't mean it's going to destroy it or kill it. It's all about placement on that one. So, always make sure that it's pointed in a safe direction, not pointed at anybody, and maintain control of that, and always be aware of where it's pointing. Nobody ever wants a gun pointed at them, right? No. So the second thing is finger straighten off the trigger unless you're shooting, and that's really an important thing. They talk about finger straighten off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Well, you can be ready to fire, but until you're shooting, there's no real reason to have your finger off on the trigger. So a lot of times what you'll see with experienced shooters is that, they'll be shooting, and then once they're done, they may be ready to fire follow-up shots, but they take their finger off the trigger. And it doesn't take very much time to just go like that. So, that's an important skill to have. And then the next thing is, this doesn't really apply for any of these guns, except for maybe this one, but typically I have a decocker on this one. See, it's in the safe position and it decocks the pistol. So if it's cocked, it lowers the hammer, and it also puts it on safe, so it's not going to activate the double action. Hammer's not going to go back. So if you have a safety, make sure it's engaged, finger off the trigger, pointed in a safe direction. And the good thing about all these rules is that they overlap. So basically, the last one would be know your target and what lies beyond it. Like, if you're going to be shooting, or you're going to be aiming or pointing your gun through a door, if you don't follow any of the other safety rules, at least know that there's nothing on the other side. So each one of these is a good principle to save you, and keep you safe, or keep everybody else around you safe. So think about it, if you don't have your safety on and you're not pointing in a safe direction, you're at least keeping your finger straight off the trigger. You can't, have a negligent discharge. So, if you're pointing in a safe direction, you have your finger on the trigger, and you have a negligent discharge, you're not shooting anything that doesn't need to be shot. So at all times you're pointed in the safe direction. So these are overlapping safeties, but try to follow them all. And the next thing that I like to cover is basically handling and how you handle the pistol. Now, some people you may have seen in like the ornament shoot, she was holding the pistol to the side. I don't typically like to do that. I like to maintain what's called retention and control at all times. So it's basically up here. It's not dangling around, and so you have them, pointed in a safe direction, but you maintain control of it the whole time, lock it into a safe pointed position. So that's pretty basic. We follow all the principles there, and you always want to have a grip on the pistol that is basically a firing grip. This keeps you in control of it, and basically ensures that you're not going to drop it. And yeah, it's just good to get in the habit of that. So yeah, well, when you're handling a pistol and you want to keep it nice and secure, yeah, it's fine. Just don't be sitting there dangling it and having this arm loose like this, and just talking with the pistol in your hand like that. It can be pretty bad, but you just have it secure. You have full control of it the whole time. And this speaks a lot to people around you, that you're maintaining control of it. So the next thing is, like, if we're going to be basically handing off the pistol to somebody, you are receiving the pistol. This is an important thing, because often I do hand you a pistol, and there's some things you might have noticed about how I do that, and I think it's a good practice for you. So I'm going to go ahead and move over here, put down this pistol, and we'll just work with her girl Rosie here, her nice little pink pistol. So basically when you're handling a pistol, when you're receiving it or you're giving it to somebody else, you want to make sure that the gun's unloaded. Even if you know that it's unloaded, it's always good to check the pistol and get in the habit of checking it. That way, when you're receiving a pistol or it's going to somebody else, now the principle here is remove the magazine and lock open the slide.
Lock open the slide.
And you hand a pistol over with the slide locked open. And as you saw there, she dropped the magazine, keeping it pointed in a safe direction, probably downward, and then locking back the slide, and then looking in. And then once that's safe, there's a way to hand off the pistol, which I typically grab it around this area, and then I point it straight down. So if you want to go ahead and demonstrate that, grab the pistol with this hand and then maybe a little bit closer right here so I can actually get a good firing grip when I'm handling the pistol. So it'll be pointed straight down and you can actually hold it like so. This is the way I would recommend it, and that's how I like to hand pistols off. And then from here you use their setup to get a good firing grip, and then take the pistol from them, and then you confirm, and then you can let the slide home and do whatever manipulation you want with it and handle it. Of course, once you have control of that pistol, you got to be conscious of how you're being safe with the pistol. It's in your possession now. So now that you know it's unloaded, say I go to her and I have the magazine inserted and it's a gun in the safe. Like I typically have nothing in the gun, but I have a magazine in there. It's just in storage. I pull it out, and typically what I'll do is, it's not exactly the best thing to do, but I lock back the slide using the magazine. Not exactly the best thing to do. You want to get in the habit of taking away the food source, which if this has any rounds in it, racking it back just for a quick check like so, that it might just feed around. So get in the habit of taking the magazine out and locking open the slide. And then once you ensure, you can release the slide if you wish, and then insert the empty magazine. So that's an important skill to have. So we've covered handling, safe handling of the firearm and stuff like that. Now the next thing I want to talk about is manipulation. So as we saw here, there was basically manipulating the slide to hand it off to somebody, and also safely handling the firearm in general, following the safety rules. Now we're going to go into manipulation. So that's going to include something very basic, reloading, and also emptying the gun. Now with reloading, basically after you're done shooting, typically you get to what's called slide lock. And even if it's not, and you notice that you're out of ammunition, like say the slide doesn't lock back, but you're like, okay, there's nothing in the gun. First thing, just like, checking to see if it's safe, you lock it back, see that there's nothing in there, and you're like, okay, now I can reload. So you take notice that there's always a firing grip, even though you know you're empty. And then you take your fresh magazine and then you put it in there. Always keeping it pointed in the safe direction. If you're shooting on a range, like say it's this way, always make sure that it's pointed in the safe direction. And insert the magazine. And then from here you can use the slide stop, but you've noticed that it's actually a pretty strong one. Yeah. So if there's a round in here, all you'll need to do, as I taught you, is you just pull the slide back a little bit. And that's why I like to use it as a universal principle for new shooters, is because these slide stops can be very stiff, even if there is a round in there. For smaller guns, a good universal principle is just pull it back a little bit, and then it goes home on its own. So if you want to demonstrate that for us, go ahead and hand it off safely. And here's the magazine. So you've ensured it's safe, so you can send the slide home.
Without the magazine, right? Without the magazine,
insert. And there you go. And then you can insert the magazine. So now what I want you to do is go ahead and push up on the slide stop and rack back the slide and lock it open. Now what she's doing is she's holding the slide stop up while pulling it back and then releasing the slide to ensure that it's actually caught, and then she can release her upward pressure on the slide stop. Now the magazine has caught it, and she's having trouble, manipulating the slide stop or slide release. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. With the magazine inserted, it's not going to go home with the magazine in there. You'll have to push down on the slide stop while you're doing that. There you go. So typically you're not going to want to send it home with the magazine inserted unless maybe you've ensured that it's safe. So no real big deal there. So basically, why don't you go ahead and lock the slide back again. And this is going to simulate. This is a pretty strong spring, so she has a little bit of an issue with strength, and she's learned the technique. She picked it up pretty good, push and pull at the same time. She's building up her strength. So basically, we're going to simulate that you're out of ammunition. So first thing is you keep it pointed in a safe direction, keeping a firing grip as best you can. Go ahead and turn it over this way. There you go. And push the magazine release and take the magazine out. And then, there you go. And then you pretend that you've got your fresh source of ammunition, keeping it pointed in the safe direction. You insert the magazine. And see how she did a nice firm seating? That's to ensure that, it's actually seated. And then from there, she can use the slide stop or the slide release. Not being around in there, she's going to have to manipulate the slide stop as she just did. So she's picked up on that pretty well. So, and last thing would actually be if you have a malfunction. So you've encountered malfunctions with some of my pistols that were worn and weren't working right. So you know what to do there. It's the same as everything else. Reloading. You keep the firearm pointed in a safe direction, and you want to lock the slide back. Really, for beginners, if you don't know the intricacies of basically getting the gun running again, the safest thing to do would just be to lock the slide back, which you're going to have to push up on the slide stop in order to do that, and yank it back, lock it open. And then the next thing you do is pull the magazine out, and see, she keeps it pointed in a safe direction, and then she can just slip it in to her pocket, just hold on to it in some other area. And then what she does is she'll rack the slide a couple of times. And with letting it home like that, if there is it covers all malfunctions. Even if it's just a failure to fire or whatever, it might extract the round when she locks open the slide, but she gets in the habit of taking the magazine out and then locking the slide, or not locking the slide, but running the slide, because if there's even if there's a stuck case in there, then that'll get it out. So it covers all malfunctions, and until she learns how to actually handle them, that's the way she's been doing it, and she's done very well at that. So that's an important skill to have, is when you have a malfunction, don't sit there and be like, it's a very simple process, it's universal. And until you learn how to quickly remedy the situation and what works the fastest and what works for every malfunction, that's what you should do. So even when she had failures to fire with one of my pistols, you were doing the same thing, right? You took out the magazine and you racked the slide. And then you put the magazine in and, continue shooting. If you remember, the Regulus was giving you some problems there, and it was failing to fire, and you took out the magazine.
I don't think I took out the magazine.
You think you just racked the slide?
Yeah, I think
because I just ran her. Again. Yeah, I just ran her through. Tried to get her to fire it again, and then I ran her through. So my mistake. But a lot of the malfunctions she was having was basically failures to extract, where the case was stuck in there, and then it tried to feed another one, called a double feed, or a failure to extract. But anyways, this is pretty simple. You think pretty simple, being safe with the firearm and manipulating it properly and safely.
Yeah.
So, it's not too hard to learn, and these are practices that, go along with pretty much every firearm, and she's learning pretty quickly, so, it's not really that big of a deal. So you don't really need to send them the formal training. If you were already formally trained, just take them through the steps. Try not to be a dick when you're doing it, and just kind of be detailed and take them at their own pace. And if they encourage them to ask questions if they're having issues. So anyways, I appreciate you all watching this, and we'll see you around.